is the feeding and swallowing team. Who are we? We're a team of speech-language pathologists with specialized training in feeding. What do? Well, when we receive a referral, we review a child's chart for any medical information, we observe a student eating at lunch or snack, and we assist the team to document any feeding accommodations that might be needed on an IEP or a 504 plan. We also help to obtain orders from a physician for students that have specialized specific feeding needs like diet modifications. Some students need to have their liquids thickened or be on a pureed diet at school. How do you get us to see your students? Well, if you have a concern about a student with special requirements for feeding safety, perhaps a child who overstuffs their mouth, who frequently coughs during meals, needs a pureed diet, or needs liquids to be thickened, the concern should be brought to the school-based team if the student is not an ESE student, or to the child study team if the child is an ESE student. The team will then make a decision as to the need for a referral to feast or not.
What should you do on a regular basis to help your students eat safely at school? This is the real purpose of this video. We will briefly share with you some basic information that may be helpful to you as a teacher or paraprofessional working with children who may need some support to feed safely at school. The main goal of feeding is for each child to be as independent as possible while eating safely.
The main topics covered in this video include the following: basic structure and function involved in the eating process, best practice guidelines for positioning while eating, examples of various food and liquid consistencies, choking versus gagging, and presentation strategies to foster independence.
There are many structures involved in the eating process. The mouth is the first component. The job of the mouth is to control how much is allowed in and to prepare the food to be swallowed by moving the food with the tongue and chewing with the teeth.
Next is the throat. Things can get a little tricky in here. One pipe splits into two during the swallow. Food can sometimes go into the wrong pipe. The right pipe for food is the esophagus, which is toward the back of the neck and leads to the stomach. The wrong pipe for food is the trachea, which is located in the front of the neck and leads to the lungs. If food or liquid goes down the wrong pipe, it is called aspiration. Aspiration can lead to pneumonia, choking, or even death. So we need to work together to prevent that from happening with our students.
The stomach. The stomach's job is to keep food in it and break it down for digestion. Some of our students, particularly those with unusual muscle tone, high or low, have difficulty keeping the food in their stomachs and have what is known as reflux or GERD. GERD stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease. GERD occurs when the stomach contents come back up the esophagus and can cause discomfort. We can reduce the risk of GERD in our students with significant muscle tone differences by not laying them down right after eating or drinking, and by limiting the need for physical exertion right after a meal.
Positioning for meals. Students should be seated for snacks and meals in the classroom in chairs that are appropriate for their height. Ideally, students should be positioned in a chair that allows them to have their feet flat on the floor while maintaining a 90-degree angle at the hips, knees, and ankles. Head position should be neutral, not an extension. If you think about the anatomy we discussed earlier, if a student is fed with their head tipped back, their airway is opened up to be a bigger target for aspiration. When students do not have the physical ability to maintain their body posture in a regular classroom chair or on a seat or bench in the cafeteria, we will often enlist the help of physical therapists to see if some type of adaptive chair would be necessary.
The third thing we're going to discuss are food consistencies. What are food consistencies? The basic consistencies are liquid, puree, and solid. Liquids can also be broken down into thin liquids, such as water and apple juice, nectar-thick liquids, such as Pediasure and fresh orange juice, and honey-thick liquids, which could either be a milkshake or even a smoothie. Purees can also be described as a thin puree, such as baby food or applesauce, and thick puree, such as cream spinach and mashed potatoes. Some students do have limitations on what consistencies they are able to safely eat. These are called diet modifications. Any student that has limitations to what consistencies they are able to eat should definitely be referred for a feast consult.
Choking versus gagging. What's the difference? Choking occurs when a foreign object, edible or not, enters the wrong pipe, the trachea, and actually obstructs a person's ability to breathe properly. It's scary for everybody involved. A child that's choking will be unable to breathe or make much sound at all. They often change color to a bluish tint. When a student is choking, they require the use of the Heimlich maneuver to push the obstruction clear. Basic first aid courses or CPR certifications cover the use of the Heimlich maneuver. These trainings are definitely a good idea for those that work closely with children who are at risk for choking. Gagging is almost the opposite of choking. It's the body's defense mechanism against choking. When an object touches the back of the throat, it may cause a student to gag to propel the object forward and away from the throat. In babies, the gag response area of the mouth is actually much further forward than in adults. This is the body's way of offering an extra amount of protection against choking. Some children are overly sensitive to smells, tastes, or textures. They may gag excessively.
Fostering independent feeding. We want all of our students to learn to take care of themselves to the best of their abilities. We can do this by fostering a balance between assistance and independence. When you have a student that requires assistance for feeding, think about how you would like to be assisted or fed if you were in a similar situation. For example, if you didn't have the ability to hold a spoon and feed yourself, how would you like to have the food presented? My guess is that you would not like a heaping tablespoons of food rapidly placed into your mouth and scraped off onto the roof of your mouth. You may instead prefer that a teaspoon-sized bite be held up for you in front of your mouth so that you can take the food off the spoon yourself. Other children may be able to feed themselves, but may do so impulsively by overstuffing their mouth or swallowing food without chewing thoroughly. These children may need to have the amount of food available regulated by placing 1 to 2 pieces at a time on the plate for them. Others may only need verbal cues to slow down and chew, or hand-over-hand assistance to use utensils.
Another important consideration is the environment in which the child is eating and or fed. A noisy environment, such as the cafeteria, may be overstimulating. Even in a classroom where the student is feeding, a loud movie being shown could be distracting or even startling for some students.
Please remember to review each student's IEP for feeding accommodations or a feeding plan.
Thank you for taking the time to learn more about feeding students with special needs.
Don't forget to reach out for assistance from Feast.
We are here to help.